Welcome back to Communicology. Today I'm going to start off with a bold statement, and that is high definition video is killing critical thinking. Now wait a minute, you might like movies, you might like seeing crisp detail, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, let me back up a little bit. And I am often one who starts off my college semester with a little scrap of paper that I give to every single student. And I have them write a few things on there. And one of the questions I ask is, if you could ask me any question, what would you ask me? So instead of having students stand up and say what their name and their major, their hometown, all that kind of fun stuff that no one likes doing, it's basically, here's your chance to ask me whatever you want to ask. And I'll get boring questions like, well, will we have quizzes during the semester? And it's like, we'll cover that later. It's on the syllabus. Ask me something interesting. And I'll get asked questions. Well, who are your favorite sports teams? Now, as someone who was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, of course, you have to say Pirates, Penguins, Steelers. And that's like almost like a birth rule. You know, when you're born and you pop out of the hospital, they basically make you swear an allegiance to one of those teams, if not all of them. But I tell them I don't really follow sports anymore. And they kind of look at me because a lot of students, especially the male students, can't fathom somebody not being interested in sports, and they think instantly that I must be something must be wrong with me that I don't follow sports. Well, there are two big reasons why I don't follow sports anymore. One, I like sports to be sports. So I don't like sports to be politics. And the problem with sports today is it's jam loaded with politics. I'm sick of politics being in everything. I like my politics to be my politics. I like my sports to be sports. So let me just watch a game in peace, please. Oh, no, we have to have some kind of special messaging or whatever. Tired of that. That's a whole nother video some other time. But the second reason is technology, especially high definition video, has ruined sports. And the big reason for that is, well, say you're watching a game, the big football game, and it's close. Your team is just behind by a couple points. And here comes the last play of the game. 2 seconds left on the clock. They drop back. They throw that big Hail Mary pass. The guy catches it, falls in the end zone, rolls over, gets up, shows off the ball. Everyone's dancing. Yay, we won. The other team's coach throws the red flag because he's got nothing to lose. And they go back to the super ultra high def Slo-Mo camera where the receiver caught the ball. He landed. And as he landed, the ball went boop, boop. And then he rolled over and got up and said, oh, see that boop, boop part? He lost possession, touchdown, overruled, game over, your team lost. You've seen it. I've seen it. It's happened a ton of times. It's like, wait a minute, that boop, boop happened in about 1/1000th of a second. You know, you can't even see it with your naked eye. It's because it's watched at super high def, super slow-mo. Now we see it. And it's frustrating. And it gets to the point where this isn't fun anymore because there is such a thing as human error. There is such a thing as critical thinking. Did the guy catch the ball? By all metrics, it looks like he did, except for that one video that showed the boop, boop. And then you're like, this is insane that we're letting 2, 3, 4 frames at 1,000 frames a second tell us what exactly happened. Critical thinking is gone. And it's not just sports. If I could go serious, we're seeing it a lot whenever we see interactions with police and criminals. And we start to wonder, well, why can't this thing happen? Well, in sports, cameras came in because we're saying, well, there's blown calls. If we had cameras, we could see better. And you know, we all obviously already have cameras for the broadcast team there, but then of course that officiating team had to get their cameras too. And we want to see the best possible image, so they get the best possible cameras and the best possible technology that comes along with those cameras. The highest resolution, the super slow-mo, all of those different things. We get 60 cameras around a stadium to see every possible angle. And well, we started to see that kind of demand in policing. There's some stuff that's going on in policing. I just wish we had a camera. Well, we put cameras in cars, and that wasn't enough. Then we put body cameras on the cops. And then, of course, citizens and ring cameras and ATM cameras and traffic light cameras and all these other cameras that started showing up everywhere. And now we're collecting all of this data and all these things. And we're starting to find out, well, maybe the stories aren't what we thought. And we've been hearing, actually, all these stories about police brutality, and then all of a sudden the camera gets released. The footage gets released, and we find out, no, actually, it was not police brutality at all. That's not to say there aren't bad cops, obviously. Just like any profession, you're going to have good people and you're going to have bad people. You're going to have excellent people, this many, and you're going to have terrible people, this many, and then all the people that are in between. But the footage is coming out and we're allowed to see things. The problem is you couple that with the immediacy of the internet and social media, and common sense, critical thinking, all goes out the window. So we see a quick little snippet of a video and we instantly jump to conclusions instead of saying, wait a minute, shouldn't there be more footage here? And then thinking about what we might see and what we might like to see. And then we follow that and then we say, okay, so here's some exoneration of what's happening. Now, in some instances that have happened recently with the protests in Minnesota, and we start seeing the stuff that's going on there, and we start all of a sudden getting people into being basically like the red flag throwing coaches or the refs with their super Slo-Mo, but they don't have the ability to really critically discern what they're seeing. They're just looking at 1/10 of a second what's possibly happening in one blurry or moving picture, and they're trying to figure out what's going on and produce a righteous judgment in one way or another. The problem with that is well, stuff happens in real speed. Stuff doesn't happen in slow-mo. That quarterback that chucks that ball down to the end zone, that the receiver that catches it and tumbles, I mean, by the time that ball lands and the guy rolls and barrel rolls, you're talking maybe a second. But when you watch it super slow-mo, it's chick, 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 frame after frame, and we're watching it over the span of like 20 seconds when it really happened that fast. So when you see a situation of a like say an unfolding incident where there's maybe a shooting or something like that, well, we can slow it down frame by frame and say, see, in this exact frame, this one exact thing happened. But the problem is that could have actually happened within a half-second time. So one frame, like, well, how come you didn't do this? You could clearly see in this picture that this one thing happened because it happened in half a second of time or 1 second of time. And you'll see that kind of thing come into play, that, the critical thinking skills disappear, just like with that catch, that Hail Mary catch in the end zone. Like, look, the guy caught the ball. I mean, come on. It was an amazing catch. He caught the ball. But because you saw boop, boop. Oh, nope. See, clearly didn't have it. It was one frame out of the whole episode that happened violently in 1 second where he caught the ball and tumbled and got up. We tend to say, wait a minute, I want to see absolute proof. So we go look, we grab one camera shot and we go frame by frame until we see the one frame that says, see, that exonerates everything. But that's not always the way it is. In lots of cases, these things happen very fast. Like if there's a skirmish between police and protesters or police and a criminal, you can find one frame and then say that holds everything. But the thing is we need to remember the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, in video, your standard video that you have with your cell phone, that is 30 frames per second. So you have 30 different pictures every second. And that's a lot of pictures over the course of 1 second. So if you have 5 different camera angles and you have 30 different frames of that 1 second, you now have 150 different frames. I'm sure out of that 150, you could find one picture that you could pull aside and spread your narrative. And sometimes that one picture can create a lot of chaos. Why didn't this happen? Because of this one picture. Or I saw this one section of video footage and that was enough to get me to believe what someone wants me to believe. Usually in any kind of situation that happens, whether it's a police interaction with a subject, or whether it's that deep thrown ball in football, it's good to wait and let the footage come out. Because if I'm going to use critical thinking skills, what's critical thinking? Let's back that up. If I'm going to use critical thinking skills, I need to take things I already know, not the things I feel, things I know. I'm going to take that. I'm also going to look at things that I've been taught and about different aspects that all revolve around that thing that I know. So there's a certain subject, but there's all little related subjects and pieces and parts that go around that come into part. I'm going to also have some common sense, the way I look at things and understand things, and the way that I understand people, the way that I understand time. And I'm going to put all that together. And then I'm also going to mix that in with my own personal experiences I've had, the wisdom I've gained from things, the wisdom I've tried to learn from other people. I'm going to put all of this together and I'm going to really chew on it before I make any kind of pronouncement. How often do people do that, though? I mean, goodness, you see social media, and we've all done it. We've all done it. I'm not like this grand, brilliant person on this stuff, because I've had those knee-jerk reaction moments too. But we've all done that, had that knee-jerk reaction instead of saying, wait a minute, this is an emotionally charged thing here. I need to step back a little bit and make sure I get all the things. Because before I call for that this person did something right or that this person did something wrong, I need to make sure I have all the facts. Not a snippet in a moment in time. I need to have all of the facts. And once you get all of the facts, then we can then say, yes, this was a good thing, or no, this is a bad thing. And usually the best way to enter into that conversation is just to say, from the outset, this is what I think I saw, but I want to be fair to the truth. Not fair to my political side, not fair to my emotions, not fair to my, my tribe who's cheering one way or another. I want to be fair to truth, because truth is what matters here. So I'm going to pause, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to look. And then when the other footage comes out, and when the eyewitness testimony is all, sifted through and gone through, and when everything comes out, then we'll know what happened. So we tend to look, and sometimes we get that fine-tooth comb, by looking at frame by frame by frame by frame in something that happened in a second's time, looking for maybe one angle of one frame from one angle that says, yeah, see, there we go, we found one frame. Instead of saying, what's the totality of the situation? Not just like that exact situation, but thinking about in general. So like if there is an officer involved shooting, what happens in an officer involved shooting? What are all the rules? What are the rules of engagement? Did the criminal or a bystander, did they do something that instigated something? Or were they truly an innocent bystander? Was there any kind of complicating circumstance? What did the police see? What did the police think? Have there been any shootings lately that maybe had them framed for thinking a certain way? What happens if this kind of thing happens elsewhere in the country? How should this department then be trained to handle these kind of situations? How experienced are the people at hand regarding to these situations? Things are so confusing when you have chaos. Again, going back to the football thing, you have all these people, especially if there's like a jump ball in the end and you see all these people scrambling and you're like, who got it? What happened? Or if there's a fumble, is a perfect example. There's just so much chaos going on. Like, how do they even know who has the ball? They just start pulling people away until whoever's holding on to it best, they're the ones that are declared to be holding the ball. It takes a lot of sifting through to get to that point. You can't see it from you can see maybe they might have a camera angle that shows someone touching it or someone cradling it, but who knows what happens into the scrum of that pile. same thing happens when you have a major chaotic event like an officer-involved shooting. There's pushing, there was shoving, there's wrestling. There's some chaos, there's some confusion. There's also fear. There's also, anger. There's all kinds of stuff going on that you may or may not see with a camera shot. You may or may not see with 20 different camera angles. It's one of those things that you just don't know until we start pulling people apart and saying, what in the world just happened here? And there are so many different aspects, and it's hard. This is not, now, again, I'm not saying always give the police the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying that at all, because quite frankly, there have been a lot of instances where we wish that there was some better accountability with police officers. Again, you get that percent down here that are poor at that job, and we wish that they weren't doing that work. But there's also people up here who are excellent at it, and there's a lot of people in between who are actively trying to do their best. And just because a criminal is a criminal doesn't necessarily mean that they're always a criminal. They could be doing a good thing at one point, or they could be in a situation where something's just misunderstood or not understood how it's unfolding. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that could be coming at play here, and we just don't know what was going on in that moment. We'd like to put noble thoughts on the police officer, or we put the noble thoughts on the protester or whatever, or the victim in general. That's dangerous, because that's all of a sudden assigning bias to their actions before we even studied what's going on. It's just like when you see the fumble on your football team. You're hoping your team comes up with the ball, and if the other team gets it, well, they must have cheated. I mean, we have experience doing this kind of thing. So what we need to do is exercise a lot of critical thinking, to where we say, hold on, I just saw a snippet. That's not nearly enough to truly know what happened. Here comes another video, and another video, and another video, and then another video, and then another video, and you'll start seeing patterns. Now, of course, the hard part is keeping your bias away so you can look for those patterns, because if you're framing your mind to look for things that back up your belief, you might see those. Again, I'm looking for patterns. I want to see not just a frame, I want to see the whole video. I want to see all the videos, and then I can start looking at all of them and understand what happened. I want to see people get interviewed. I want to hear what the witnesses saw. I want to hear what the officers saw. I want to know everything that went on so I can form a good opinion of what happened. And that's really hard, because again, we want to have our mindset of, I want my team to win. I want my side to be right. But you can see where that can be damaging, because you're instantly throwing in bias. Wait. Have critical thinking. And let everything unfold, and so we can understand what's going on. Don't be reactionary, because that's usually what gets us in trouble. So the takeaway with anything that comes from those kind of videos is to be patient. And it's hard when you are inflamed, either one side or the other, doesn't really matter. If you're inflamed and impassioned and you want one thing to be the thing, and it's easy to instantly jump on the one thing that tells you what it is. Patience, and then wait and see how things unfold. Because where you end up seeing crazy chaos and rioting after the fact is once more stuff comes out. And once more stuff comes out, the people who are sold on the other side just can't believe it and think it must be nefarious, it must be manufactured. All because they jumped at something too fast instead of saying, let's be patient and wait. Let's see what can happen. And usually there will be more stuff that comes out that ends up making it pretty obvious which side's right. Very rarely is it super muddy even after all the truth that comes out. So be patient, use critical thinking, and see what happens from there. So thanks very much for tuning in today. And if you would, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And if you didn't like what you heard today, that's okay too. Thank you very much for hanging out this long. But I'm going to head on out and maybe catch some more sports. And I'll see you next time on Communicology.